Oftentimes, nick or a gouge is going to be done with the bumper cover on the car. It isn't too often that it has been taken off the car. About the only time they do that is for painting concerns. So we're going to go ahead, and this is the damage that we're going to repair. It's relatively minor nick or a gouge. We had not gone through the bumper, so all of the repair will be on the front side. If it was a tear or a puncture or a hole, we would have to reinforce the back side before we could work on the front. This is not, so we're going to just be working and focusing on the front side of the bumper cover. First step we're going to do is cleaning. We're going to start with soap and water to remove any road grime that water will take off. And then we're going to confirm that that area is at least clean in terms of anything we can wipe off with water by checking the towel. That's pretty clean. Next step, we're going to take general purpose adhesive cleaner, and that is going to remove anything asphalt based, solvent based that the water didn't touch. Also, the general purpose adhesive cleaner is going to aid in evaporating the water out of that repair area. As you can see, it's pretty clean. At this point, we're good to go. The next step we're going to do is we're going to dish out the repair and continue on. Okay, now that we have the area thoroughly cleaned, the next step is to take a grade 50 Roloc on a pistol grip and dish down into the repair. We're trying to minimize the contact on the flat of the bumper. All we're really trying to do is just knock down this cliff edge on the edges of the gouges. And also, as you no doubt know, anytime you contact plastic with a high-speed tool, you melt the plastic. We want to minimize that. So what we're going to do is, after we're done with the Roloc, we're going to go to a grade 80 to rough up. And that rough up in the valley of the repair is actually going to give us the adhesion of our repair material to the bumper. Now I'm holding the tool up on a fairly steep angle. Okay, I've tried to minimize how much of the flat of the bumper I'm contacting with the Roloc. I do have some molten plastic here, and the next step, which is going to be a grade 180 on a dual action sander, is going to rough that up. Again, we're going to keep that 80 grit just in the valley of the repair. We're going to minimize just how we're going to minimize the contact of the 80 with the top of the bumper. I'm just going to be working in the belly or the valley of this repair just to dish it out. Okay, as you can see, I've really minimized the contact that I've made with the 80 on the top side of the bumper. You want to really keep that to the barest minimum, because of the ripping and the shredding of the plastic is not going to be eliminated easily by the next subsequent grade that you use. What will happen is you've torn the plastic and it'll spring down from the action of the DA, but it'll spring right back up. You haven't cut it off. So we have a little secret at the end, towards the end of the repair, to get rid of these things, these fuzzies of plastic that like to stick up from the grade 80. Okay, so the next step is we're going to go on the perimeter of that area with a 180. All I'm doing with the 180 is I'm trying to open up that area. But I haven't gone into the valley of the repair with the 180, because that's defeating the purpose. I've got a nice healthy 80 scratch in there to give me a maximum adhesion when I go to fill it with repair material. Okay. At this point, we'll blow off the repair. I'm going to apply adhesion promoter. That's all it takes, and we'll let that sit for 5 minutes to flash. Okay, we've applied the polyolefin adhesion promoter, and the question, comes up about the different types of plastics out there. For bumpers, 97% of the time, the plastic that you're working on is an olefin-based plastic, and it needs this adhesion promoter. The other 3% of the time, they're the old classic rim or urethane type of materials that in the past were very prone to solvent swelling. With the new 5907, we have reduced the harshness of the solvents in there without affecting the adhesion qualities of the material. So what we're getting is we're getting less solvent swelling of those rim type of bumpers, and as long as you wait the 5 minutes on the label, as we've done here, that solvent swelling is allowed to reverse. The solvent evaporates out, the swelling is diminished, and we're ready to go on to the next step. Let's talk about equalizing the cartridge next. As we mentioned in the past, the natural tendency is to remove this metal clip, but if you do that and then unscrew the cap, you're faced with still trying to extricate this green plug. If you had left the metal clip in place, you let the nut do the work of pulling the green plug out. Okay, now we're ready to go to put it in the mix pack gun and equalize the cartridge. You want to eject just enough material to where both A and B, the black and the white side, are coming out equally. Wipe it clean. And then attach the static mix nozzle and replace the retaining nut. Then go ahead and pump till you get some material coming out, and discard the first pump, and you're ready to go. Okay, the first step is to apply the adhesive. Some people like to apply it right to the spreader. It doesn't really matter. One of the most critical aspects of this next step is getting the tight coat. And the tight coat is taking the material and forcing it into the repair area. And the way I like to make sure that I've got it forced well into the abraded area is to actually wipe it dry. You see, I've wiped this dry in an effort to maximize how much material is being worked down into the abraded surface. Okay, then you want to continue building this up. And we like to go paint to paint, which is basically encompassing the entire area. And we're done. Okay, we've waited the 15 minutes. A good way of checking to see if the product is cured is just kind of see if you can nick it with your fingernail and leave a white mark. If you can, it's good to go. Okay? Now, the only time that really becomes an issue is colder days, colder shop temperatures, anything down below 60 degrees, and you're going to really slow up the speed of the cure. So just be sure, even though you've waited the 15 minutes for the product, on a cold shop temperature, cold shop day, cold temperatures, it may not have cured up yet. So just give it a little bit of a nick, and then if you leave a white mark, as I'm doing there, you're good to go. Okay? So we're going to start off with a grade 80 Hookit disc. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to knock down the high spots. When I see the repairs start to come in, then I'm going to switch over to a 180, just to let you know. And at this point, you're going to throw up a little dust, so it's advisable to wear some respiratory protection. And we're going to start sanding. Okay, now I'm seeing the repair coming in there, so I'm going to switch over to a 180. And you could conversely start doing some block sanding at this point with a 180 as well. And then finally, we're going to feather well into the clear with a 320. Now at this point, pretty soon it's going to be heading to the painter. And one of the major issues with these types of repairs is we talked about the fuzzies, where the plastic has been ripped and shredded by the coarse grade abrasives, like a grade 80 or coarser in some instances people will use. And that plastic, when you go to the next grades, it just gets tipped over, it just gets bent over, you're not abrading it. And so when you're all done, and you can, a good way of seeing this is if you did it on a scrap piece, hit it with a light contrasting primer, a light gray primer, because typically these olefin bumper plastics are black. And you'll see the fuzzies, you'll see the texture that's left in there. And that's left for the painter to bury. And oftentimes what that painter will end up doing is have to apply additional primer coats, sometimes as many as 5 to 7 layers of primer coat to hide those fuzzies. So what we found is there's a couple ways around it. You could have started off, instead of a grade 80, you could have started with 100 and then gone to 150 and 180. And then when you're all done, as the paint manufacturer's recommendation, often recommend, use the 320 at the perimeter. Or what you could do is use a general purpose scuffing wheel. It's just a Scotch-Brite wheel, and quickly go over the repair. what that does is it grabs those fuzzies and rips them off, cleaves them right down at the surface. So this bumper is ready to go to the painter. Except for one thing, one final application of the polyolefin adhesion promoter. And what that does is you're not so much concerned about promoting adhesion to the repair material, but at the perimeter of this repair, you've exposed raw bumper plastic, and you need something on there to get the primer and paint to stick. So that's why we finish up this job with a final application of the polyolefin adhesion promoter. Now this is ready to go to paint.